Hello, welcome to Rose Floral School, the show. I am Catherine, and today we are having kind of a chit chat episode. Um, and we are talking about styled shoots or styled photo shoots. I have a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of good suggestions, and a lot of things I wish I did in the past. Like I said, today's episode is going to be kind of like a chit chat. I wrote some notes just to try to hit on a few specific points, but I'm just going to kind of dive in and we're going to talk all things styled shoots. So let's do it. So styled shoots are something that I have had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with. And I think that after I reflected and just, over the years, I have realized that I had this love-hate relationship, and it's because I wasn't doing them right. So let's make sure you do them right and you can love them. I will also say, not for nothing, there is a difference to being a part of a styled shoot as somebody who's a total newbie, super green, versus someone really seasoned with a solid client base and a booked schedule. There is a difference. There will be a difference in how you approach it. There will be a difference in, whether you need it or want it or what you're using it for. Um, and so, I think there's just something to be appreciated there too, in knowing that as you grow in your business and depending on what stage you're in your business, styled shoots will be something different for you. Um, I will say in general, if you are super new and super, new to the industry, new to your area, whatever it is, I do think styled shoots can be a really useful marketing tool. If you are more seasoned, you're established, maybe you're already, typically fully booked, then I think a styled shoot can be not so much of a marketing thing as an exploration thing, an artistry, a creative challenge, or a way to sort of try to get into some sort of a different style or expand your style. So, all right. I guess I'm just gonna start. Let's start with just some like easy, tangible, straight up like hints or tips or tricks, whatever you want to call them. My first like thing I wish I did, if you're doing a styled shoot, plan to be on site during it. I have had a few in the past where like I had something else that day or I was booked or I couldn't be on site. And so we set up an arrangement for me to just deliver the pieces and whatever. There you go. Well, they all worked out fine. There was not no benefit, but if you can be on site, there are so many benefits. My first and foremost benefit is that you can get branding photos of yourself with yourself in them. And if you are ever doing a styled shoot, new or seasoned, whoever you are, I really think you should get branding photos. Now, you don't need a full portfolio, you don't need an entire like hour-long shoot, but you should agree and you should let the photographer know ahead of time and make sure that they agree to it, that you will get some photos of yourself. So you can get in there with the arbor piece and fluff up the flowers a little bit, do some arranging, tweak the bouquet, set the centerpiece on the table, whatever those are, whether they're more posed or they are real candid moments. Whatever it is, you should plan to get photos of yourself from the shoot. Those are super valuable for your social media, for your website, for any of your branding. Make sure you are in some of the photos and you get photos of yourself in your element working, because the it's such a like almost like a diamond in the rough to get photos of yourself working. I don't know if that's the right phrase. Was that a diamond in the rough? Maybe like I don't know. I don't know what the phrase is. There's a phrase. You probably are telling me what it is. It's a I don't know what it is, but to have photos of yourself working is rare. When you're working a wedding, you're not going to get photos of yourself. You might. I think in my career, I don't even know. I can think of maybe 5 weddings that I've actually had photos of me setting up the flowers that the photographer took, which is amazing and I love, but I don't expect the photographer to take my photo working. I would never ask a photographer at a wedding, like the couple's hired photographer, to take my photo. That's not what they're there for, and so I don't expect it. You really shouldn't expect it, but at a styled shoot, it is your time. That's the time to get photos of yourself. So if you're not there, if you are just doing a drop off, oh yeah, here they are, bye. You're missing out on what I might actually say is the most valuable part of a styled shoot: photos of yourself working with flowers. So that's one of the reasons to be on site. The other reason, which also is super valuable, if you're on site, you can connect with all of the other vendors that are there. Now, you'll connect with them anyway in planning the shoot and sharing things and tagging each other after, but to actually get to know them a little bit, I've had some of my best vendor to vendor conversations at styled shoots. Because on the wedding morning, you get to know some of the same vendors, but it feels like you get to know them in these snippets. You're like, oh my gosh, hi, oh wow, the desserts look amazing. Oh, where are you out of? Okay, oh cool. But you're both there to work. You both are on, on a schedule. You're there to do a job. And so you get to know each other on a better level in a less rushed sort of environment at a styled shoot. So to meet with the other vendors, chat with them, and get to know them in more than a quick snippet, again, one of the most valuable things that you can get from a styled shoot. Um, and then on another note, a more practical note, when you are there on site, you can move the items, you can reuse things. If you do, a centerpiece like a tablescape, you can take those flowers and reposition them for the sweetheart table. You can have those flowers if the couple is, sitting up on top of the bar doing some photos up on the bar. Put the centerpieces on the bar, and now you've got a bar tablescape. I even had one where we did, the ceremony arbor. We took all those pieces down, and there was a rowboat on site and a cute little pond. And we took the arbor pieces, slung them over the boat, and off the couple went with their boat overflowing of flowers. It was amazing, gorgeous photos, cool idea. Um, and if I hadn't been there to help facilitate moving those pieces, we could have missed out on that moment. But, it makes your flowers that you've worked hard for and paid money for go that much further. You get that many more photos, that much more traction, and you get some of those cool, kind of unique photos that you don't see all the time. Instead of just the ceremony setup, we had photos of the ceremony setup and the rowboat full of flowers. Um, so I had just that much more different varied content to post, and some a little bit different, more exciting content in a way too. You see a lot of ceremony photos just naturally, but not as many rowboat photos. So just having that extra ability to move pieces around, reuse pieces, reposition things, and make it look like there's 5 times as many flowers, because you're just reusing the same pieces. So that's all my input about being on site, and frankly, I feel like we came out strong, because those are probably some of the ones that I feel the strongest about. Um, so then moving into some other pieces here, if you have the ability, if you can host or organize or even co-host the shoot, if you want to be part of a shoot, I would suggest doing that. Now, if you get asked to be in a shoot by someone else, I mean, that's obviously that's a cool networking moment. That's like a cool compliment to your work. It's an exciting thing, but sometimes it can be a little tough, because sometimes when you're getting invited in, they already have a design vision, they already kind of have a plan, and that may or may not line up with what you want to do, what makes sense for you to do right now. And on that same kind of line, if their design vision just isn't, fitting your brand aesthetic, your design style, don't be afraid to not do styled shoots that don't align with you, whether it's, you know, in any way that it could align with you, but design wise, especially if it's just something you're not excited about, or you know, you tend to design a really contemporary, modern, slick style, and this is a wildflower photo shoot in a prairie. You know, if it just doesn't make sense to, you know, speak to the work that you want to be doing, don't be afraid. And I mean, not even don't be afraid, like don't do it. Don't be afraid to not do it, but like you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't feel like you have to. So make sure if you're asked into a shoot that it aligns with what you are trying to do. If it's all bright colors and you are a neutral, you know, leaning florist, don't don't do that one. And so on. But then back to the original point, if you can host it, or help organize it, or be, you know, in that organization stage, totally, I recommend that. Not only again, will you just have even more like contact points with the different vendors to build those relationships, but you'll have that freedom to say like, hey, I had this really cool idea, I had this vision, or like, oh, I want to start, you know, selling more extravagant arbors, so let's do an extravagant arbor. And it's just that much easier if you're at the head of organizing it to steer it the way that you want. But even if you're not, like I said, don't be afraid to say no if it's not something that makes sense for you, or to offer that input like, hey, this was something really cool I've been wanting to try, or, you know, hey, this is the type of style that I would like to be working on more. So if you want to do this style, you know, we can see. Yeah, so don't be afraid to kind of have your input, whether you're hosting it or you're not, honestly, either way. Let's see. Oh, another thing, I did this once. I organized and hosted a shoot, and I combined it to be a giveaway situation. If you can somehow either incorporate it into a wedding show or a giveaway, or just like an experience with like actual prospective clients, do that. And you know, you can brainstorm different ways. What we did is I got a group of vendors together, and we posed it as a giveaway, as a photo shoot for it. We left it just open-ended, like couples in love. It ended up being a couple that had just gotten engaged, and they won the photo shoot. So instead of having model couples, we had a real life couple. Now the bride to be wasn't wearing a wedding gown, but she wore a neutral, long, you know, flowy sort of a dress that, you know, worked. Honestly, it kind of could have been like an elopement type of gown or something. Um, and she got to keep the bouquet that was like the bridal bouquet. They got couple photos, which we had some that, you know, maybe did feel a little bit more like bridal styled shoot, but they had plenty, tons that were just like couple photos, engagement photo type shoot. So they got the photos, and we had like a wedding cake made, and they got to take the cake home to eat. Um, there was, you know, the bride got hair and makeup all done for the shoot, which that was like her own cool experience. It was like a whole thing. And so we did that as a giveaway. And so before we ever even had the shoot, tons of people were sharing it and reposting it and entering the giveaway, which got us like a first round of traction. And then on the back end, we got the photos out of it, which, you know, you would get anyway, but we kind of almost had extra traction on both ends. So something like that. I've seen shoots be incorporated into wedding shows before, things like that. If you can find a way to get clients involved, even like doing a poll and having people pick what you do for the shoot, you know, something like that maybe. You know, think about a way to get people involved outside of just like, "Oh, here's these photos, look at them." You know, that is, I think it just adds an extra layer to make it that much more valuable. And you know, when you're devoting time and energy and money into a shoot, you want to get as much value out of it as you can. All right, let's see. Make sure I'm hitting all the bases here. Um, all right. I think I will say I had one other note, which I'm not going to I don't know, I guess I'll just put this in here as like a side note. I don't think this is necessarily a huge thing, but something to consider is the other vendors. So whoever else is involved, whether it's, you know, just make sure it makes sense for what your end goal is. So if it's a styled shoot at a venue that's outside of your normal area that you would ever really do a wedding in, you know, probably pass up on that one. It's if it's at a venue you wouldn't really work at, it's not realistic. So, you know, maybe you don't need to go there. Um, like the photographer, if the photographer's shooting style is just not that it really this is kind of a tough one because you know any bride that books me I don't really I'm not like hey well who's your photographer oh she they edit to they change the colors too much I don't want to like no I'm not at the point of caring about that really but because it's for a styled shoot the point is to have those photos for your social portfolio and for your website and if you really like, you know, if you're a bright color floral designer and you want those bright, vivid colors in your photos, and the photographer that's doing the shoot edits in a super muted, moody, dark, deep, vintage sort of a style, those photos might not really make sense for you to use on your website. It won't show the work the way you want it shown for the way that you want to, you know, like the type of clients that you want to book. You know, if you want to sell bright color bouquets and the photos come back and they're muted and dark and moody, you shouldn't really use those on your website. So if the photographer style isn't aligned, you know, or shows your floral style that you want to sell, I would consider that and I would maybe pass on it if it was, you know, super far out of alignment. I probably wouldn't be overly fussy about it. But you know, and on the same hand, if we want to do dark, moody, cool, woodsy, botanical kind of stuff, and the photographer's like making everything really rosy and bright, same idea. So I would sort of think about that when you vet, you know, the other vendors that are part of it. Not that I would write people off like immediately, but weigh it out and see if it makes sense with what you're trying to do, which is, you know, build your portfolio, show the kind of work that you want to be booking, you know, and having those images. Um, Another consideration, especially as, you know, if you've been doing this for a while, if you have your own clientele and your own social media following, you know, you might want to look at the following of the other vendors too. Um, Not for nothing, but if you're at that point, you've established yourself and you've worked to get, you know, eyes on your product. So you want to make sure that you aren't the only vendor that is kind of bringing an audience to the table. Styled shoots work really well because we all have our own separate, you know, clientele or like audience. And then when we share, we post each other, we share each other and tag each other. And so now we're sharing audiences. Now, a lot of audiences probably already are overlapped, but if you have an audience and frankly, all the other vendors, you know, don't have an audience, you aren't gaining as much as they are. And so just, you know, approach it in that way. And again, not everything in life has to be like completely transactional, but things should also not be one-sided. So just make sure that it doesn't feel one-sided to you. Um, I think that one of the tricky things about being the florist in the styled shoot situation is that we are one of the like I don't know how to phrase this. We spend the most money out of pocket, basically, is what it is. You know, everyone is spending time and you know, I don't know if everyone's spending equal amounts of time, different amounts of time, whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, the florist is spending the most cash out of their pocket, which this was always one of my biggest like points of contention with styled shoots, especially before I got all these other things down to get the other value. You know, it was just for the images, but I was spending so much money and it felt like I would rather do a wedding and spend money but get paid. So having that just as the situation there's a lot of ways you can approach it. Like I said before, maybe the other vendors have a bigger following and you're willing to foot the bill to get access to their audience and get those referrals and get that relationship with, more established vendors. And that can be a trade-off, that can be worthwhile. Um, Other things you could do, you could ask for some amount towards the flowers. So, whether like I said, if it's someone else that's organizing it and asks you to be the florist, you can reply and say, "Hi, I would like to do this. Have a policy," and figure out what your policy will be. Is it a flat rate? Is it a percentage of your cost? I do think obviously everyone is giving their time and their effort. But just you have to figure out where it switches to where you're giving your time and effort and your money. And how you kind of come to terms with that. And it a lot of times will be a case by case basis. So, like I said, if you're super brand new and a photographer with 15,000 followers in your exact area that serves your exact type of, ideal client bride asks you to be part of it, maybe that is the value and it's worth the money that you'll put out. Um, and maybe not. That's something you have to sort of go through, think through, and assess for yourself. But so if to you you want to just do it and that's that, fine. If you want to ask for a percentage or ask for market costs to be covered or sell them at full retail, honestly, don't feel like you have to do or can't do any of those. You can do whatever you want. And if you're the right florist and they're the right, team for the shoot, they might even pay you full retail. Anything can happen when everybody's in alignment and has the same needs and wants. And so, but don't be afraid to ask for some money, um if it fits you, but don't feel like you need to. I know this probably is, yeah, I don't know if this is just not one of those things where I can say this is what you do. These are your options. You have to do what fits, your needs and wants. So yes. I think this is about one of my last points right now. When you do a shoot, I would suggest whether you are trying to get some money towards the costs or whether you're doing any of that or not, I would suggest having some type of a just like a styled shoot contract. Now, I don't think it needs to be hard hitting. Again, one of the top benefits of a styled shoot is the relationship with the other vendors. So you need to assess whether you want to I guess I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but you know what? I'm not going to try to say this in a nice way. I'm giving it to you straight. That's what you're here for. You don't want to necessarily come across as like a hard ass. Or maybe you do. Honestly, you need to decide for yourself. But for me, I'm not trying to be the florist that thinks she's a hot potato and has this long 6-page thing with all my demands for a styled shoot, because that's not who I am. That's not what my brand requires of me. And that's not what I want to be. But I would suggest some type of, just a simple agreement covering, just even confirming the day and the time and the general items, just so that it's all there to be confirmed, so you're all on the same page. And if you do have those requests, you can mention them. Oh, I would like a small portfolio of branding photos, 10 to 12 branding photos, or I would like, whatever your demands are, have it down there so that it's out there and it's agreed upon and everyone can be in the same, in the same page, on the same page. And even having a clause in there too, whether it's how much you require, like, oh, I require 50% and it will be estimated this much and when it's due, and even something in there about cancellation. If this gets canceled with, in less than 3 days before, I will require this and that. Because that is one thing, it didn't end up coming to be, but I had one styled shoot where it was the day before and the weather suddenly shifted to rain, which whatever. But then the gown company didn't want their gown to be in the rain, which I understand totally. But the photographer didn't want to only shoot indoors, and no one wanted to pay for, a white summer gown to just use outside. And who cares if it gets wet? And it was on pins and needles for a moment. And I had over $500 of product from wholesale, in my workroom. And for a brief minute thought, is this thing about to get canceled? And I didn't have an agreement, I didn't have a policy, and I was not covered. Luckily, it all went through, the forecast changed, everything was literally fine. But at that moment, that's when I learned, oh, I should have some sort of coverage, because I don't want to be out the money for literally nothing if it got fully canceled. So that would be my last, I guess, like, thing I wish I knew, or thing I've learned. I'm excited to hear from you. I would love to hear any, like, if you have styled shoot horror stories, let's hear them. Or if you had anything really cool that happened at a styled shoot, I would like to hear that too. And yeah, I hope that this was helpful. I'm interested to see what resonated with people. So do let me know and stay tuned for our next episode. Feel free to follow us. If you don't, it's Rose Floral School on Instagram and on TikTok. DM me on Instagram if you have a topic request for the future. And if you did enjoy this, please leave a 5-star review and or subscribe to my channel. Thank you so, so much. I hope all of your styled shoots go amazingly, and I'm sure that they will. And I hope that this was helpful. So have a great day.